I found my daughter shrinking in a chair on the porch, shivering in the middle of Christmas Eve as her husband's family laughed in front of the fireplace. That moment broke my soul. And what I discovered that night changed my life forever. Hello, let me tell you how it all started. Hours earlier, I had gotten off the plane in Querétaro with the heart. Today, after months working as a taekwondo coach, I was finally going to see my daughter Lucia and wanted to surprise her, hug and dine together as in the old days. I took a cab, and while we were moving forward between streets adorned with lights and families on the way to midnight mass, I remembered the years when Lucia jumped by my side, asking me to tell him a Christmas story. But something disturbed me. All day long I tried to call her and it didn't come out. I was convinced that I would be busy preparing dinner with her husband Julian's family. Tried to calm down. Upon arrival at home, the cold of the night penetrated to my bone. I approached slowly and looked out the window. But inside, the table was served with apple salad and wine glasses. The Torres family, Julian's parents, his sister and children, toasted in front of the fireplace. But I did not see Lucia. The gentleman was looking for her with his eyes. And then I heard a noise. A weak complaint, almost lost in the wind of the night. My heart stopped. I turned towards the porch, and there I was. Lucia arrived shrunken in a wooden chair, with just a thin, purple lips and reddened eyes. Lucia, I screamed with a broken voice. I took off my coat and covered it in despair. His shoulders trembled uncontrollably. His skin was frozen. I raised her in my arms. Just muttered "Mom," and collapsed against my neck. Mientras tanto, the laughter and the tinkling of drink still continued. The family celebrated by the fire, while my daughter froze in the snow. Lucia clung to me with trembling lips. It wasn't just the cold that weakened her. I could feel his stomach growling against my chest. Was exhausted, without strength, as if she had been left out, not only to punish her with the weather but also with hunger. I raised her in my arms and advanced to the front door. From the inside came laughter and the smell of freshly baked. My blood was boiling. How it was possible that they were enjoying the banquet, while my daughter was freezing to death on the porch. I knocked hard on the door. No one dies. I hit harder again. Finally opened. When Teresa, Julian's mother, appeared with a glass of wine in his hand, and a fake smile painted on the lips. Odo were Rosa. What a surprise, he said in a mellow tone. Why did not notify before? I looked her straight in the eyes. I felt my throat burning from so much sadness and anger. If I had warned, thinks you would have seen this, no. I would respond by squeezing Lucia against my chest. The woman raised an eyebrow and looked at my daughter with, "Do not exaggerate. Just wanted some air." At that time, Julian appeared behind his mother, with the shirt ajar and the bottle of wine in his hand. Mom's voice sounded cold, loaded with pride. Mom closes the door, leave her outside, always pretends not to help at dinner. I felt Lucia shrink in my arms. When I hear those words, my heart was breaking, but my anger grew even more. Tell me something. Hello, I want to read them in the comments. From which country do you hear my story? Write it down, I will be very happy to know, thank you. What happened next was even worse. Julian's comment was like a stab wound. Leave her outside. Had said as if Lucia was worthless. I squeezed it harder, feeling his weak breath in my neck. I was not going to let my daughter continue to be treated as you said. I pushed the door with my chest and entered without asking permission. The room was illuminated with warm lights. Christmas music was playing from a horn, and the table was covered with tamales and wine glasses. The contrast was unbearable, a banquet of abundance inside, while my daughter was outside, trembling and on an empty stomach. Then I laid her down on the couch and covered her with my scarf. Lucia said nothing, had a lost look, too weak to defend itself. His silence tore me apart, but it also ignited a fury that was impossible to resist. Julian looked at me with discoro, alcohol-red face, raised his voice with arrogance. You have no right to make a fuss in this house. I pointed it out with my hand trembling with rage. And you have the right to let your wife go cold and hungry at the door of his own home. That's what you call being a husband, isn't it? Then the laughter died down all at once. Everyone was watching me with discomfort, but no one dared to say anything, until the father of Julian rose slowly from the head of the table. Doa Rosa is enough. Doa Rosa said in a deep voice. This is a family affair. A woman who cannot bear children must learn to endure. That is the tradition. I felt like a chill running down my back. I saw the pride in his eyes, that of a man to commanding and humiliating. I took a deep breath and answered with a firm voice, looking at each of those present. This is not tradition. It's called cruelty, and I will not allow it any more. The room was silent. The air was heavy, and the only thing that burned in me was anger. Silence. Dratan. The beating of my own heart could be heard. No one was moving. Everyone was looking at Lucia lying on the sofa, with a lost look. Too weak to defend itself then. I was standing in front of her, as a wall willing to support whatever comes next. Then Julian's sister, with a mask, released his acidic voice. The only thing he knows how to do is play the princess. A smile that not even my brother could give to my brother. The laughter of their young children were mixed with his words. Aunt Lucia is punished, said in a low voice, as if they were repeating something they had heard earlier at home. That was too much. I turned around with burning blood and answered enough. How dare they talk about my daughter like that? This is how they have treated her all this time. This is how they have made her feel in her own home. Rose Teresa, Lucia's mother-in-law, took a sip of wine and murmured with, "Do not exaggerate, Pink. No one mistreats her. Only when a woman does not comply, must accept its place." Every word was like a stroke. I looked at Lucia with dry lips. Their icy hands, their eyes extinguished, and I understood that my daughter's silence was the most painful test of all. I had given up after so much. I stepped forward and raised my voice. This is not a matter of customs or family. This is violence, and I will not remain silent while you destroy it. Julian, still holding the bottle, let out a dry laugh. Violence, he believes. No one hits her. We are just fed up with their weakness. I saw him move towards the sofa, with eyes red with alcohol and anger. At that instant I got in the way, blocking their way with my body. One more step, I warned him, and you will have to face me. Then the whole room was tense. The lights were flickering. The atmosphere was heavy. And everyone was waiting for the next movement. I knew that night I was just getting started. Julian stopped in front of me, raising your voice with arrogance. Hello, this is my house and you're not going to tell me how to treat my wife. Then I looked him straight in the eye. I felt all the contained fury of the years. Far from Lucia, of each call, in which she told me crying that she had lost a pregnancy, of every time he tried to hide his pain so as not to worry me. Your house, I said with a firm voice. Mom, this is also my daughter's home, and you have turned it into a prison. Lucia tried to join, but the body did not respond. Barely made it to babble. Wham! Please, I caressed his forehead and responded in a low voice. You no longer have to keep quiet, daughter. I will speak for you. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and marked with trembling hands. Then the family remained silent, looking at me with surprise. What Teresa is doing in a mocking tone. I will report. I responded coldly. This is domestic violence. Julian's father, with his haughty demeanor, took a step forward. You have no idea who you are facing, Rosa. I have spent my life in court. No one will believe you. I listened to it without ing. I knew they had power, money and influence, but I didn't care anymore. Nothing could be worse than seeing my daughter destroyed in life. Julian tried to snatch the phone from me, but I turned around all at once. By putting it out of their reach, touches one more finger on my daughter. I warned him, and I will not only denounce you, you will confront me. And I am not a woman to stand idly by. Silence was broken with a slamming of the door, but since the entrance, someone else had witnessed everything. Was Diego, a former student of mine, now traffic police. I was serious about my fists, and the gaze is on Julian. Was not alone, and they knew it. Diego appeared on the threshold with his uniform still on. His gaze was firm, but in his eyes you could see something more: appreciation, loyalty, but maybe that's why it came just at that moment. Sensed that something was not right. And even though it was Christmas Eve, came to make sure that Lucia and I were safe. Doa, Rosa said in a deep voice. I have heard enough. Silence in the living room became unbearable. Julian tried to maintain his composure, but I saw him take a step back. Did not expect a witness and minus one policeman. Then that same night, with the help of Diego, I filed the complaint. I knew it wouldn't be easy. The Torres family had in court and they would pull their strings. The trial progressed slowly, full of excuses and technicalities. Then the judge finally accepted the divorce. But the violence was not recognized. Said there was not enough evidence. As if hunger, cold, and will not count. Then Lucia cried when she heard the sentence. Did not lose his home or belongings, but he did suffer a deep wound, that of not having been heard. I shook his hand with all my strength. I felt anger and impotence, but also a certainty, even if written justice had ruled us. Was not alone. The next day, the days that followed were hard, but something started to change. Diego's testimony, along with the photos and reports, Lucia's doctors, circulated on social networks. People began to be outraged, to point out the cruelty of the Torres family. Although legally we did not achieve everything we had hoped for, socially, began to be singled out and their prestige collapsed. Diego remained close. Delicious fruit, cookbooks and words of encouragement for Lucia. I saw his presence. Gave him a little bit of life back. I wasn't there just out of duty. Came because he appreciated us. Because he really cared about us. But eventually Lucia smiled again. Not with the strength of before, but with a light I thought was lost. Why yo? I thanked life for giving me courage that Christmas night. When I interceded for her and promised her that I would never be alone again.